So hello everyone and good morning. Welcome to our first webinar from the PULSATE project. I see how many attendees we have now, 46. It's very great to see you all today on the Friday afternoon before the weekend to get the introduction to the first PULSATE open call. So today we'll start from, we'll introduce you a little bit more about the profile of the companies or of the applicants that can apply, that are acceptable for this open call. Also about the benefits that will be offered to those that will be selected, and also a little bit about the process, how we will do that, how we'll select the best experiments, and some tips on how to write the winning proposal. And at the end, we'll invite you to the Q&A session. So during the call, during the webinar, you're more than welcome to write your questions in the chat. And Marta from Funding Box who is here. Marta, are you here?
I'm here. I'm in the dark.
Okay. Great. So Marta will help us today from the technical side and will manage at the end the Q&A session. So all of you are welcome to write your questions in the chat. And yeah, to start with, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Izabela Zrazińska, and I'm the Senior Project Manager at Funding Box. And well, normally I also manage another projects with robotics, with the welding industry, and here in PULSATE, I'm responsible for the open call management. That is why today I will introduce you a little bit more about the first open call. And as I mentioned, I'm from Funding Box, who is leading the open call management in the PULSATE project. And in the short, Funding Box is the ecosystem for the deep tech startups that connects and creates so-called funding champions deal for the SMEs, mid-caps and startups through the connection to corporates, investors, European projects that we are involved like PULSATE. And we are involved in many projects. Here, actually, the PULSATE is located under I4MS, so it's focused on the manufacturing, but we're also in many projects related to digital innovation hubs, AI, robotics, or next generation of internet. And now to the point about the PULSATE initiative, which is the one which I would like to tell you a little bit more about. So the PULSATE project aims to foster the pan-European infrastructure for the competence centers in the laser-based advanced and additive manufacturing. And the idea is, sorry, next slide, is to implement the LBAAM technology to the different markets. Okay, so to boost these 6 sectors that we are focused on, but not only, through the experiments that will be performed with the SMEs, with the technology providers, and with end users, which are the manufacturing SMEs. And the PULSATE is organized by the strong consortium, which is, well, in most part are the competence centers from all over the Europe. PULSATE is coordinated by AMEN, which is the technology center from Spain. And other technology centers are SINTEF from Norway, CEA from France, Fraunhofer from Germany, and Center for Physical Sciences and Technology from Lithuania, and MTC from England. So these are the partners responsible for the technical support and for technology in general in the project. Then we have Funding Box for open call management and dissemination, EPIC, which is European Photonics Industry Consortium, responsible for dissemination, and CLESGO, responsible for building the Digital Agora platform. And well, the main, as I mentioned, main goal of the project is to create the ecosystem that will be based also on the PULSATE Digital Agora that will be available at the end of the project as the final product, where all the stakeholders, I mean the industry and technology providers, together with competence centers, digital innovation hubs, and the business will be united and could use the platform for many functionalities that will be developed during the project. And the open calls, so that is also one of the main tasks. There will be 4 open calls. This is the first one. And for those open calls, we'll select 62 projects that will be focused on LBAAM technology And in total, the funding that the project has is 4 million euro. And there will be two types of projects. The first one is the technology transfer experiments, which is, I would say, the biggest one, and this is the first one that we are launching now, where consortia can apply. I will tell a bit more later about who can apply and how the consortia should be constructed. And the main goal is to develop, test, and validate the technical and economic viability of the new technologies. So these are experiments on implementing the technology into the real market conditions. And for these open calls, we'll select, well, in average 10 experiments per open call. In each open call, the maximum funding per experiment is 150,000 euro. And the duration of the support program, if you get accepted, is 13 months. So this is, as I mentioned, the big one. And then there will be also two smaller open calls for adopters, where individual SMEs or slightly bigger companies can apply. And those companies will enter to the 3-month support program and will receive up to 25,000 euro to perform the technical and economic feasibility study for the implementation of the technology. Okay, but it will not take that much time because there will be no technology. There will be only evaluation of the feasibility of implementing the possibility of implementing this technology. That is why it's called Adopters Open Call. So getting to the point with the technology transfer experiments. Sorry, I forgot to mention that the general open calls website is here with PULSATE open calls point funding box, where you can get all the information about all the open calls during all the projects, and the benefits from the technology transfer experiments open calls are, I would say that the biggest one is the technical support from industry experts. So as you could see, the PULSATE consortium is created by very strong competence centers with different focus on the technology domains like high power laser-based applications, micro nano fabrication, additive manufacturing, or LBAAM digitalization. So at the end, each experiment will have assigned the competence centers and will be able to use this support during 13 months to develop the technology and to perform the experiment. Then another benefit also, which will go in parallel with the business mentoring led by Funding Box. So here, usually it's the individual or customized program with the external mentors involved that will help to define the business model and also to connect with the market. Another benefit, of course, the funding, which is up to 150,000 per experiment. Media exposure, which we'll also do through the events, through the webinars, through connecting you with all the ecosystem that PULSATE itself already has, and also help you to find further funding, or public or private. Okay, so here you can see on the slide the full program. As you can see, the first stage, the tech development, is the longest one, usually focused a bit more on the technology provider that will have to prepare the technology to be adopted in the stage 2 with the manufacturing SME or end user, how we call it, in the proof of concept. And then at the end, once the experiment is implemented, then the short stage of scalability is implemented to help to connect to the market and to and be successful from the business side. So who are eligible? That's the first most important question. So for the experiments, we're looking for the consortia. Okay, so it is important that there has to be a minimum of 2 SMEs or slightly bigger companies. It is important that only SMEs and slightly bigger companies can apply. Okay, so only these 2 types of legal entities can be part of the consortium, of the experiment consortium. And as I mentioned, the idea is that it's the technology provider that has the equipment process related to LBAAM technology that could match with the manufacturing company We call it also end user or technology adopter that will adapt or test this technology in its processes in its normal environment. And it is compulsory to have at least one manufacturing company. Okay, so there could be 2, 3 technology providers being together, but they have to implement it. There has to be at least one adopter within the consortium. Okay, so this is very important to take into consideration. And if you do not have a partner to apply with, you're only the technology provider, or you're only the adopter, and you would like to match, we have 2 types of services to help you to match. So one is the expression of interest. It's a very short online form which you can fill, and we'll try to match you with another SMEs that are looking for the partner. Or we also have a matchmaking community where you can enter and you can just write a post of, yes, tell a little bit about your technology and what are you looking for, and the community can directly reply to your request. So if you need our help, you can submit the online form. If you would like to do it by yourself with the community, there's a special space for that. And for the legal status, as I mentioned, it is important to remember that only SMEs or slightly bigger companies can apply. And here are the basic criteria for these 2 legal descriptions. So first thing you have to take into account is the headcount. So how many people are hired in your company. In case of SME, the criteria is less than 250, and slightly bigger is less than 500. And another one is the annual turnover, which also has its limits. Basically, with the slightly bigger, the maximum is 100 million euro. And here, a small comment. It is also important the SME status is evaluated or is reviewed in the legal process once you get selected. So this is very important that if you get selected, you will be asked to provide also the information about the subsidiary, or if you are part of your linked enterprise, or you are connected to some bigger company. This is also taken into consideration with the SME and slightly bigger status. So it is also important to remember about the connections that you have, because they will be also taken into consideration. And of course, this status or these rules are based on the European Commission recommendation that you can also find in our open call documents if you'd like to get more details about this. And now also about the status. So, you know, it's the European countries can apply, but also associated, and also probably many of you have also a question about the United Kingdom, and it's also allowed to apply. Okay, so European and associated are eligible. And the important part about the technology, if you enter to the open call package, the guide for applicants, you can find that the description about each of these areas of experimentations that were predefined. And it's very important to, in your application, to refer to one of these areas, because this is also the requirement to refer to it, to reply to at least one of these. And in the guide for applicants, you can find also small examples of what is under each of these points. Okay, so this is from the technology point of view, it is very important to follow one of these areas. And from the technology, it is also important to remember that the technology or the experiments should be on the TRL level between 5 and 7, which is between the technology development and technology demonstration. Okay, so this is also for the technology side. And here in the summary, the most important points from the eligibility. Okay, so just to, I will repeat myself, but basically you have to remember about your consortium composition, so that you have to have at least one manufacturing SME, adopter, or end user, that you have to refer to at least one experimentation area from the guide for applicants, that your technology has to be on the technology readiness level from between 5 up to 7 maximum, and that you have to have, well, that all the consortium members have to be SMEs or slightly bigger companies, and that they have to be located in European or associated or UK. And then, well, this is your proposal. Then you're eligible. And yeah, here are some additional questions that sometimes pops out. If you can apply with more than one experiment. So yes, the answer is yes. But here it is important to take into consideration that there is like the role of the coordinating entity. So this is the one that will actually sign the sub-grant agreement, and that will be the main contact point and the responsible for all the experiment. So you can apply as the coordinating entity only with one experiment, but then you can also be a partner. So if you are a partner, you can apply with up to 3 experiments. So this is also important to take into account if you are planning to apply with more than one. And always remember about the funding limit, which is for this. Well, this is the first PULSATE open call, but also will count it for all the open calls in the PULSATE, that the entity cannot, one legal entity cannot get more funding than 100,000 euro. And this is for the PULSATE open calls, but this is also for the open calls from the I4MS initiative, which PULSATE is a part of, and CA projects. Okay, so this is very important to also remember that. Now, a little bit more about how we're going to do that, how we're going to select. So first of all, one entry point, the application form under this address, where you basically click apply now to open the application. Then you'll see the first draft, which you can review and you can fill out later, but this is how you access the application form. And also very important, before submitting or before you start to fill out the application form, you should enter to guides and documents section and read the guide for applicants, which is like the most important document for all the open call. And also we invite you to read the frequently asked question, which is the supporting document, but includes a lot of useful information for you to help you to submit the successful proposal. And of course, we have also a help desk where, which is basically also the community where you can enter and ask your questions, which I will also, about the help, I will mention that later. Now about the selection process a little bit. So as you know, the proposals, the deadline to submit the proposals is by 22nd of April. Then the application will be closed and we'll do the eligibility check according to the criteria that I explained before. So the SMEs, the country, okay, we'll check the multiple submission. So this will be the first basic criteria that we could do like through the system because they're kind of obvious. And then those proposals that are eligible will pass to the most important phase, which is the experts evaluation. And here we'll engage the external experts from the industry that will evaluate the specific aspects of your application, which I will also mention later. It is important here also to mark that those experts are of course confidential. Okay, so they sign with the PULSATE consortium the confidentiality clause, so all the proposals are safe. And this phase lasts until 14th May. That is where until when all the evaluation will be done. Then there is a short meeting with the consortium, which is called consensus meeting, where the final ranking is discussed. And after that, the finalists will be invited to the jury day. Okay, so this is important. The jury day is planned for the 3rd week of June, but of course, due to the current situation, we still cannot confirm the date, neither if it will be the presential event. So there is a very big chance it will be the online event. Then during that event, you pitch your idea to the jury, and also there will be a part for the questions. And based on that event, the finalists will be selected to sign the final agreement to enter to the support program. Here also, well, I jumped for the mini grant agreement, because this is also in case if the jury day will be presential, then all the invited experiments will have to sign a very short agreement for the mini grant of 1,000 euro per experiment for a travel to cover the travel costs for the jury day. In case if the event is online, then the mini grant will not apply because there is no travel. So we'll just go directly to the online event and the final signature, which is expected for the end of July, and the support program will start probably in September. Okay, so this is between August and September. So this is still to be confirmed, but the process is already fixed. And here I wanted to mention a bit more about the application form. Okay, it has the basic sections about the contact information or your consortium composition that are quite standard. But the one that I wanted to focus your attention on is the excellence, impact, and implementation, because these are the ones that external evaluators will pay attention to when giving a score and providing and creating the ranking. So these are the most important ones. Then we have the statistical section, which is optional for the European Commission statistics. Declaration of honor, so just read if you understand everything through in this section, and the personal data. So as I mentioned, these are quite standards, and these three are those where you actually have to write the content to be evaluated in the winning proposal. And these three sections are described, and the criteria are described in Guide for Applicants in section 5. But we'll also have, I will also pass through them to give you a little bit more overview of what is requested, but also small tips, as I promised, on how to what to include for having the winning proposal. So in the section of excellence, first of all, the first question is, well, you have to describe what is the technology behind your experiment. So this is the section where you have to describe the innovation and what is behind your experiment. And also the important part, here you should actually prove the TRL level, the technology readiness level that you have marked in the application form. That your technology is on that level. Okay, that is also important for the evaluators to compare if that is true, that this is relating. Then also to show the connection with at least one of the experimentation areas, and also to show so-called state of art related to the process. So what is the innovation? What is this novel concept? Okay, why you should be selected, why your technology is the innovative one. Okay, so this is the excellence section. Then we also have the impact, where you should focus more on the market view. So here you have to show the example of the users that could adopt the technology or the outcome from this experiment. So of course you will apply with one end user. This is the minimum. This is the minimum criteria. But you can also show, if you have another users or adopters in mind, then you should show that this is actually scalable to different industries even. Okay, so this is the impact that this experiment will have on the different industry. So basically market potential. Also, if you know any competition and differentiation, it is also important to include this in that section. Your initial business model, okay, so what is your plan for the service and for the future? And how, well, it's called exploitation of results. So how this know-how and this technology could be also used between academia and industry. Okay, this is also something that, from the research point of view, what could it bring to within the new product, finding new company, the patent, what is exploitation of your results after the experiment. And yeah, the bonus, you know, for the European Commission project is also important that there's a section where you can include the short description of the impact on the social and environmental impact. Okay, so the equal opportunities, social impact, and low carbon economy contribution. Okay, this will be used as not the main criteria, but for sure, in case of ties, this kind of additional impacts will be a good point. And then the last one, I would say the most difficult one, the implementation. So here you have to reflect on what actions you will do during this 13 months of the experiment. Okay, so you will see in the application form, it's divided per stage. As you maybe remember from the support program slide, the first stage is the longest one, when usually the technology provider is developing the technology and adjusting this. Then there's a proof of concept where you should include the end user, and the scalability. So they're maybe trying to adapt or to look for another proof of concept in another industry sectors. Okay, so you should try to be as more detailed as possible. Of course, we understand that sometimes it might be difficult without knowing exactly what kind of, like, which competence center could be assigned to you or could help you, but it is very important to tell us what do you want to do. So actually, when evaluating, the evaluators will also check if this is feasible, okay, in this period of time, and if it is doable. So this is very important. Then the KPIs. So what do we want to reach? Is it ambitious enough? Is it realistic? Here, yeah, the advice about the SMART rule, to be specific, measurable. So of course, I know it's not always possible, but ideally the KPIs, if they are with numbers, it's always easier to measure them. But of course, depending on the experiment, you might adjust them. Then there's also a question about the risks and their mitigation, and what kind of support you will need to perform the experiment. So what kind of expertise, what kind of facilities, what is missing in your consortium. That is also important to help us to check if actually the support could be adjusted to your needs. And here for this question, you can use the list of the competences that are listed in the Annex 2 of the Guide for Applicants. There's the list of all the competence centers involved in the project, and there's specializations. So you can actually read that first and see from that list what you will need. Also, the implementation, the consortium. So we know that a good experiment also depends on the team and on the mixed experience of their members. And then at the end, the budget, which I specify on the next slide. For the budget calculation, it is important to remember that it's up to 150,000 euro per experiment. Okay, so the amount you put into the application form, this is the one that you request. Okay, it could be, of course we recommend to do it with within the maximum, but depending on the technology, it might not be feasible to, well, you might not need such a big amount. So that is why whatever you will include here, this will be the grant that will be assigned to your experiment. And it has the standard the standard sections or the standard categories, which is the personal costs that is involved in the experiment, the travel costs if needed, and consumables. Okay, so these are the three categories that are in all European projects. Then you have to calculate the overheads, which is basically the 25% of all the first three aspects. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So this you can calculate automatically. And then the fifth category, which is the subcontracting, in case if you will need that. And here you do not calculate it automatically, but you should pay attention that subcontracted should not be bigger than 50% of all the four categories mentioned before. Okay, so when calculating that, it is very important also to pay attention to not put too much on subcontracting, because most of the actions should be performed by the legal entities engaged in the experiment. And then, of course, you sum up all the 5 categories, and your requested amount will be 70% of the total costs. Okay, so it is important to remember that in PULSATE project, the funding rate is 70% of the total costs requested. Okay, so of the total costs. So this is the form. This is how it will show in the application form. And some tips. You can check the cost references, and actually we made also the example of the budget in the frequently asked questions. I believe it's section 4. So you can actually take it as the example of the feasible and reasonable budget. And then remember about the maximums, which is 150,000 per experiment and 100,000 per company. Okay, that will apply in experiment, but also remember that it's also for if you submit more experiments, it will be taken into consideration, and also other I4MS and CIA open calls. Okay, so this is also very important. And then, the small word about the ethics. There's also one question which will not be evaluated, but you have to pay attention to that, because the ethical evaluation is also part of the process when you're evaluated. So in case you can write, well, if you have any procedure about the personal data, you can include that. This is always a plus. Pay attention, the military application use or third countries from outside of Europe. These are usually the main ethical issues that occur, which of course usually are not the reason to not get accepted, but of course they will be evaluated in the later stages when you are accepted. So it's good to do this evaluation and this ethical self-assessment before, and also identify any risk with the advance. And yeah, that's I would say for these sections that are evaluated and scored. And now for the helpful tips. Of course, on top of submitting the application before the deadline, I wanted to mention about one functionality, because if you apply with the consortia, you can add the contributors to your application website. So this is actually useful if you want everyone to be engaged, or if not, you can all work offline, and then one person will just fill out all the forms. And another important tip is that you can always edit everything before the deadline. Okay, so we usually advise to fill everything, submit, and then keep editing that. Okay, but of course, most of you will wait for the last minute and then give the submit to the final version. But just to let you know, until the deadline, you can always edit your submitted application. Okay, so on 22nd, it will be closed, but until then, you can edit. And now for the help, as I mentioned, please read Guide for Applicants and Frequently Asked Questions. These are very important documents, and you can find them in the Guides and Documents section. We also have the email where you can ask your questions directly to our team, or the open calls help desk, where you can join our community and write directly there. And we'll also organize a series of webinars. So this is the first one. The first and the main one, I would say. The second one that will be organized by Funding Box, but with the participation of the MTC, will be a focus on the innovations and on the technical support. So we'll try to make it more technology related, and will be on the 10th of March. And after this webinar, we'll place the registration link in case you would like to join or to register already. And then we'll have the final webinar in the I think 2 weeks or 1 week before the deadline on 12th of April, where we'll provide you the final tips, and we'll place a bit more time for the Q&A. And on top of these two that are marked in yellow, also the consortium partners are organizing their individual info days. So in case you would like to get more local and individual support, you can also join one of their info sessions. I think the closest one is from Germany, organized by Fraunhofer, and in Spain by Eman, of course, all of them online. And we will facilitate the links on the Open Call website to all these webinars. Okay, so once the registration link is open, you can sign up and also join different webinars. And I believe that's it. Now we have 20 minutes for question and answers. So I'm not sure, Marta, if are there any questions?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions, but not that much. So be glad you explained it very well. So the first one is just related to practical issues. Are the presented slides going to be provided after the webinar?
Yes, the slides and also the video will be published on the Open Call website. So yes, this and also the second and the third one. So these 3 main webinars will be recorded and placed in our community and Open Call website.
Okay. Then there's a couple. There are 2 questions related to the composition of the consortia. The first one says, do the 2 consortia partners have to come from 2 different countries?
No, it can be from the one country. Of course, it's always nice to see in the European programs the multicultural collaboration, but this is not the requirement. So it can be from the same country, yes.
And then another one related to the composition of a consortium says, applying with more than one experiment, is it okay 1 as coordinator plus 3 as partners, or it must be 1 coordinator plus 2 partners?
Yeah, it has to be the one as the coordinator. Well, honestly, I don't have the answer. I would have to check for that because this is the tricky question. But yeah, I mean, I think it should be allowed because it's not our goal to limit the opportunities, because of course more experiments and better. But what we pay the attention when creating this rules is that the legal entity has actually the capacity to perform it all. Okay, so this is also the importance of the involvement, that if you get selected to all of them, would you have time to actually be involved in all of them? And the second thing to pay attention is the funding limits, right? So is there a point if the funding limit is 100,000 euro per legal entity? So if you want to participate in 4 experiments, then it will be like 20,000 per, you know, you have to think also about this. Nevertheless, I will try to answer this question. We'll include it in the frequently asked questions, okay? So I'll confirm, but I already can tell that the funding limit is already limiting somehow.
Okay, so I got a couple more last minute ones. That's great. Yeah, oh, sorry. I missed that one. Can a laser 3D printing machine manufacturer be considered as a technology adopter?
Well, if you have a process or technology that you would like to test in the production environment, but I understand that the production environment is already like in situ, no, within the technology provider. So even if you have the technology, you have to think about someone else to test it, right? So this will be, I think, the clue. So yeah, you have to have someone to perform the experiment with, right? So if you are both technology provider and manufacturing or end user, then you have to think like how to do the experiment, right? Or you should scale and find another end user that could test it. And then, because of course we know that sometimes there are companies that might have both roles, but the clue is to define it well, who will do what, and show that the experiment will actually test something, right? Or to make a difference. So yeah, I hope I replied well the question.
Okay, get another one about the local webinars or the presentation. Will the presentation of the open call be in the local language of the country?
Most of them, as far as I know, yes. So yeah, I would say that yes, but it depends on each partner. But the idea is to make it local, so I hope the partners will do it in their own languages.
There is also a comment thanking you for the presentation, Isa.
Thank you.
And then I got another question. Does the experiment have to be both advanced and additive, or does it advance or additive? Okay. So
this
it has
is, I
to be
think, more
advanced
technical question.
or advanced and, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a bit more technical question, and I'm sorry if I cannot answer that because I do not have a technical background. So I will also include it in the frequently asked questions. Okay. We don't have, as for the eligibility criteria, there is no such a requirement to be this and this. Okay, so I don't think we're that strict. The most important from the technology is that to cover one of these experimentation areas. Okay, so I think this is the clue, but as I mentioned, from the technical side, I might have difficulty to answer. So also we will try to follow up in the FAQ document for this.
Okay, another one. Can CEA, Fraunhofer Institute, etc., institute participate as subcontractors?
No. The consortium partners cannot participate neither in the experiment, well, as a part of the applying consortium, neither as the subcontractor. So if you want, well, the Fraunhofer to be part of the experiment, then you can, well, the only way I can see to somehow include it is in the application form. When you will write what you need, you can directly point out that it will be Fraunhofer that you would like to be your support competence center, okay? But there will be the consortium partners and competence centers cannot be a part of the experiment, neither the subcontractors. They will be supporting the experiment selected.
Okay, another one regarding CEA. Do you know which entity of CEA it is for France?
No, no, I don't, honestly. But this is also, I think this will be the. Well, no, I don't want to answer the question. I'm not sure about. But for sure, on our on the PULSATE website, we can see exactly the department, and also, as I mentioned, in Annex 2 of Guide for Applicants, there is a list of the competences provided by each research center. So I believe from that list, you can also you'll be able to find out which part of CA is the one engaged, because indeed this is a huge competence center. So sorry, I cannot answer directly to that.
And we also have a potential applicant here. Hello, we have an idea regarding maintenance in the rails area. However, we are not sure that could be inserted in this type of funding. Should we send an email to the pulsate.help @fundingbox.com?
Yes, I mean, of course, we are not able to influence to the applications, but in case you are not sure if the technology you have, if it applies or if it's eligible, you can always write a short description and send it to the help desk email, and then we can answer yes or no. Okay, so this is absolutely fine, and you're more than welcome. Before you get yourself into the application writing, you can always check with us.
Okay, we got another one about the composition of the consortia. May the coordinator be a technology provider or only the end user?
It can be both. There is no restriction for that.
Okay, can related companies from the same business group participate in the same experiment or several experiments? And if so, will the limit of funding, like the amount of funding, 100K, be applied individually or as a whole?
This is this is also a tricky question, but yeah, it depends if the legal entity, because the SME status is evaluated based on the legal entity together with all the business, with other business entities. So I'm not sure if, if applying separately each business entity. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud now because this is a difficult question. But yeah, I mean, even if they're in the same business group, if they are each legal and separate legal entities, so the funding limit will be counted per this legal entity. No, I don't think it will be counted per business group. Okay, so legal entity by 1 and by 100. So if you do not apply as the whole business group, then I guess it will be counted by the legal entity. But this is also a tricky question, okay? So I will also write it down because the groups are always, always tricky. So yeah, sorry, sorry, and I hope this explains. I don't think it will be a problem if you apply by individual legal entities, even after one business group, but we will also follow up with this in the factory.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions. Is the development of an already known machine, but with some improvements, with an already known laser equipment, can be eligible as a project?
Yes, of course. I mean, if you show that this is innovative, then yes. But also you have to remember, in case of some technology that was also supported with another programs. Here, I don't want to get into the details, but there is the double funding rule. So if this technology was supported by another European project, like PULSATE or even I4MS family, then the funding from PULSATE experiment cannot fund the same things that were funded previously. So this is important to remember when you're developing technology through different European programs. And as I mentioned, if you're able to show the market differentiation, I would say, from the product that is already on the market and that it's innovative, then yes, it can. If it's innovative, you can apply. Yes.
Okay, so I got another one here. Manufacturer means manufacturer of the part in additive or the user of the part?
Well, the manufacturer definition in the guide for applicants is, the manufacturer is indeed, from the experiment perspective, is more like end user, right? But manufacturer, the end user of the technology, of the laser technology. So if it will be applied in the process, that this manufacturer, if this manufacturer produce something, which I don't remember what was the thing that he produced in the example, but yeah, the important is that this manufacturing is considered as more as an user or adopter. That is why when I was explaining it, I was using it a little bit both ways, because yeah, manufacturer produce and has to improve the process, but at the end, on the experiment vision in PULSATE, it will be the adopter of the laser technology in his process. Okay, so these are usually the industrial SMEs, okay, that want to improve something with LBAAM technology.
Okay, and the last one that I got so far, can academic participant be integrated into a consortium?
As the subcontractor, yes. So, well, and of course, if it is not one of the 7 competence centers that are partners in the PULSATE, then it can be involved, but as the subcontracting party, which is the maximum of 15% of the total budget. Okay, so yes, but with limits.
So that's it regarding questions. I don't know if any of you has another one.
Yes, I
there
mean,
were also some comments here, and thank you, and thank you, Isabella.
Yeah, also thank you all, because it's great to see.
Thanks.
It is great to see so many people interested. As I mentioned, for those questions that I was not able to answer, we'll find it out and we'll include it in the frequently asked questions for sure. And also, as I mentioned, the more technical focus, which that was most of the questions I couldn't answer, will be on the second webinar on, remind me, Marta, 10th of March or 3rd of March? Wait, I have it here. Yeah, on the 10th of March. Okay, that is where we'll have MTC with us, and we'll probably also invite other technical partners. So these more technical questions will be answered them. And in the meanwhile, we'll include them in FAQ. And of course, you are invited to join before 10th of March each competence center info session. And yeah, once again, thank you for the questions and for your interest. Don't forget to apply. Still a lot of time. And in case of questions, you can send us an email directly to the PULSATE help desk email. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the weekend.